Welcome to the Real Joe Show. Today we have Tyler Elstrom. This is going to be one to watch. Tyler is the ADHD real estate coach, and we're going to be introducing him and give a little bit about his background and then hear about what ADHD and it does and how to work with it and around it to make your business successful. So let's go. Tyler, welcome, welcome.
Cool. Thank you for having me. And
Yeah,
thanks for using your platform to bring more visibility to this.
sure. It's actually a really relevant topic. ADHD is everywhere. It's talked about from grammar school all the way up through life, and to have you on here talking about it, I think you'll see it's almost a job requisite for realtors to be ADHD. It seems. So I'd love to hear. Looking forward to hearing this. But let's get to a little bit about your background in real estate, and then jump into how and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I ran a team with a partner actually, and we were ranked 86 in the world in 2015 when I was 26 years old. And so ran that team, spoken internationally, 15,000 people, those kinds of things. And then I also have been a ADHD real estate coach now for almost 6 years. And
Now,
yeah,
how'd that happen? So from real estate, how does ADHD? How'd that happen?
yeah. And how I became a coach from selling houses.
Well, specifically the ADHD part.
Yeah. Well, and what I'll say is, and usually what I'll say after my bio is the reason that all that happened was because of my ADHD.
Okay.
And really, as we talk today, there are some things with ADHD that can feel harder, and we want accommodations or adaptations in place that can help us. And then there are other pieces of ADHD that absolutely help you excel in real estate and are something different and incredible that you can lean into. And putting stuff in place for the things that can be a little bit harder, and then making sure you're in your joy zone and you're laying on the things that are easier is really the recipe to do some pretty incredible things.
Okay, and just to qualify yourself a little bit more, you do have a background in mental health as well, correct?
Oh, I do. Yeah. Yeah. I worked for about 4 years in one of the top residential facilities in the country, Cooper Reese, and it's privately funded. And so there was a lot of nutrition and awareness and therapy, and it was a little bit more of a holistic approach married with the clinical approach. And that, I think, really helped me with self-awareness that allowed me to use the ADHD and then help other people with it. And with ADHD, there are a lot of co-occurring diagnoses that come with that as well. And so having that background is really helpful as a coach and for myself.
So at what point did you realize, well, were you diagnosed with ADHD, or was it something that you just realized going with that you had it?
I wasn't as a kid. I really, for me, I really wanted to behave. And so, with ADHD, you have all this kind of, well, there's three types. Is that okay if I share what the three types are, and that'll explain a little
No,
bit more?
please do. Right. Absolutely.
There's three types of ADHD. The first one is the one that a lot of us are more familiar with. And frankly, ADHD for most people, they associate with, the boy in class that can't sit still. That's like the stereotypical view of it. And there's so much more to it. So the first type of ADHD is what we call a hyperactive type. And that's really the stereotypical one where you're fidgety, can't sit still, you're restless, you got this internal motor that just can't slow down. And then we have what's called our inattentive type. And this one is often diagnosed, often misdiagnosed, and it's more often in women. Doesn't mean, hyperactive is exclusive to males and inattentive is exclusive to women, and it's more often in women. And what that is you take this external energy and outside fidgeting, and you take all that energy and you put it internal. And on the outside, the body may be calm, and inside there's this internal chatter that doesn't really slow down. And you might talk over people in conversations, and it often gets misdiagnosed as anxiety. So, and if women get diagnosed, which very often they don't for a long time, it's in their 40s. That's the average if they get diagnosed.
Wow.
80% of the population, though, is undiagnosed in general. And then we have the third type, which is the combined type. And that's some of the hyperactive and some of the inattentive. And so in school, I'm more of the hyperactive type, and I never want to get in trouble. I had like really good family that I wanted to like please, my mom and my uncles and my grandma, and everybody really involved. And so I think I really masked a lot of my symptoms, and a lot of it was we thought was anxiety or depression or stuff like that.
Wow.
So I didn't get diagnosed. I didn't want to be different, and I hid it and thought it was only me. And then when I was in my 20s in real estate, I finally did get diagnosed. And when you go to your primary care doctor, depending on their knowledge on it, which there's not a ton of training, I just thought it was the can't focus. That's it.
Right.
And I tried one medicine and I didn't like the way it made me feel. And there's no other information out there. So I dropped it for 10 years until I got as a coach a couple of years ago. And I was in this prestigious mastermind for being one of the top coaches, top like 2% or something. And it was the other top 100 agents in the whole country in the room. And we were 5 feet away from our CEO, who's incredible, our founder of the company. And I had to go walk outside because I couldn't sit still. And
Right.
I thought, how am I going to progress if I can't read a book or sit still or be in a training? And that's when I took it seriously. And that's kind of the chain of events that brought to where I'm at now as a coach.
That's pretty interesting. So how did you reel that in? Like, what are some of the techniques that you used to reel that in and use that to your benefit?
Yeah. So one, I got an ADHD coach, and I was already a real estate coach, and I got an ADHD coach, and that really helped me.
I never knew there was such a thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. And they're in extreme demand. And I convinced him to take me on, and he had no room. And I was like, hey, here's what I'm doing. It was somebody local. And I started with the coaching, and then I realized I woke up to the fact that over half of my schedule, and I coach 30 to 40 people a week and have for almost 6 years, half or more of my schedule had ADHD. And I was like, oh my gosh, which the normal population is about 10%. So when we're talking about half, and these are high performers because I coach some of the top 3% in the country. And then I started using the techniques from him, and then all of their business kept going up, and that went on and on and has become this. So I can talk, if you'd like me to, about how to kind of hack it, because I think that was maybe part of your question too that I didn't answer.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this is the way that I look at it. First off, we want to actually organize the environment around you to enhance it. And here's what I mean by that. So with ADHD, our brains are formed differently. There's 4 different parts of the brain that develop differently or more slowly or a different way in an ADHD brain. And certain stimulus that would light up or activate a non-ADHD brain doesn't activate ours. And because we have lower dopamine, and you can see on brain scans, the brain activity is lights up less. Now, we have 10 times the amount of thoughts as someone without ADHD. So it's not that we're not as smart or we're dumb or anything. We have 10 times the amount of thoughts as someone without ADHD. And we typically have less dopamine, which is why we're calm under pressure, which is why, we can do things the last minute, which is why, we can do well, improv and all those kinds of things. And so there are 5 things that really light up an ADHD brain. And it's the acronym NCUP. And NCUP stands for interesting, new, challenging, urgent, and passion. Interesting, new, trying to get my hand to the camera. Interesting, new, challenging, urgent, and passion. These are the 5 things that light up an ADHD brain and release dopamine. And because what happens is, as a coach, this is the way we look at it. And this is the thing that helped me, that's now helped a lot of people. I thought of it like this. Imagine a fuel tank in a car, right? You have one fuel tank, and someone without ADHD has this fuel tank, and they can use that fuel or gas for whatever they want throughout the day. And certain things they don't want to do might take a little bit more fuel, but they've got about a fuel tank worth. People with ADHD have 2 fuel tanks. The first fuel tank is 3 times the size as the fuel tank in a car and the non-ADHD person. And that's for everything that's an NCUP. If it's interesting, new, challenging, urgent, passion. So those are the types of things where And I don't know if you've experienced this, Joe, where it's like you forget to eat, you forget to drink water, you forget what time it is, your sunglasses are in your head, it's 10 p.m. at night, right? And you're so engrossed and you're so hyper focused on this thing that you're so passionate about. That's where the money lies. You have more energy at the end than when you started. That's the gold mine right there, because it's not an attention issue or a deficit, let's say. We can have more attention and focus and hyper lock onto things that other people are tired of and they're bored of, but it's got to be certain things. And so that's where the money is. And then we have this other fuel tank, the second fuel tank, and that's about a third of the size of the fuel tank in a car. And that's for everything that's not an income. And that can be a little bit bigger or smaller if you're choosing medication, if you've got good sleep, if you've exercised, your diet, if all those different pieces, if you have tools in place. And when this is gone, this is where we see burnout, emotion regulation issues, irritability. You just can't even feed yourself, apathy. And the key is to get your life out of that other fuel tank and get it into income. That's what's created my career. Is one, getting lead generation, get all of your into something you're passionate about, into something that's challenging, into something that's new, shift your whole life and your business into income, and then leverage out everything in that other fuel tank, because now you've got tons and tons and tons of energy and you're not feeling debilitated by your symptoms because you're in your joy zone. And that's really the bulk of, that's really like the hack.
So that's super interesting. It kind of reminds me of an exercise we were just doing where we list everything that personally matters to us, and we build our plan around just those things, and that's our path. Is it the four? We use it's the 411 is what I'm referring to. Is that similar? Is that how you determine what should be in that income? Like, how does an agent want to figure out where to put that attention?
So there's an exercise that I really like for income. And basically what you would do is you take just a plain sheet of paper and you draw a line vertically and draw a line horizontally. So you separate it into 4 different pieces on your piece of paper. So you got 4 squares.
Okay.
And what you're going to do in the bottom left corner is do a multiplication sign. And then the upper left corner is a addition sign. The upper right corner is a subtraction sign. And then the lower right corner is going to be a division sign.
Okay.
And what you're going to do, what's that?
I'm doing this as we speak.
Well, yeah, and it's perfect. I would recommend everybody do this. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill this out. And basically this is like you're mapping out the things that you love to do and you don't love to do. And how you're going to do this is in the square that has the multiplication sign, this is the stuff that you love to do in your life, in your business. It's like joy on steroids. You can do it forever. You're hyper locked in. It's like when you think about it, it makes you happy because you want to go through your calendar, go through your job description, go through and just have it by your desk day to day and fill it out and get it as full as possible. And so that lower left corner, the multiplication sign, is the things that it's like you love it on steroids. Right? You can do it forever. It fills you. It fills your cup. Then above that, you have an addition sign, and those are for things that you love to do. It might not, make you lay awake at night because you're so excited, but you really love it. You love those aspects of your job. You enjoy it. It gives you happiness. And then we move over to the other side. And you have the subtraction side at the upper right corner. And those are things you don't really like to do. You'll do them, but you really don't like it. You'll do them. It's part of the job. You don't enjoy it. And then you move down to the lower right corner. That's the division sign. This is stuff that you might not even be able to do it, right? It's like pulling teeth. You hate it. It makes you frustrated. You feel exhausted after, drained. You can do this with your work. You can do this with activities around the house, laundry, dishes, mow the lawn, whatever. Some stuff you like, some stuff you might not like. The goal is for you to live on the left, right? What would happen if you lived your whole life on the left? And then the right side is how can you leverage this stuff out? Because with ADHD, if meal prep is so hard for you and you're exhausted by the end of the weekend, pay $125 a week because you might be able to come in Monday and be refreshed and set an appointment for $10,000. And if you did the food prep yourself and you couldn't come in for lead gen in the morning, doing that food prep didn't save you $50. What it did is it cost you $9,850.
Right.
So you want to be really intentional with ADHD. to leverage. You're going to leverage. I'm going to leverage sooner than anybody, other agents, and we're going to try to pull everything off that's on the right.
But that's fantastic, and leveraging not just your personal stuff, like you were just saying, leveraging. I would think in the business, leveraging your transaction coordination, leveraging all the things that don't produce money for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? Yeah. There are people who are amazing at that stuff that want to help you. So bring them in. I've created a lot of jobs in my life because I'm really good at some stuff and really terrible at some stuff. So I just create jobs. It's a win-win.
That's the way to go. Absolutely. The one thing that you said that you dug into was lead gen. And lead gen is one of those things that I'm going to assume, because I hear it a lot, when they put that down on their quadrant, it's not going to be love to do. It's not going to be on the left side. Yet that's the business. Mm-hmm. So how do you work with agents that are struggling with picking up the phone, or struggling generating leads because they like doing the softer stuff, the more fun things? How do you bring them over to that?
That's such a great question. And here's what I would say. Lead gen can look different for everybody, and having that flexibility is really important. People with ADHD, we generally do well when there's structure and yet freedom within the structure. So if we have too much structure, a lot of us can rebel if it's too rigid and just say, you know what, whatever, I'm going to go over here because we can get overwhelmed. We can shut down all of these things. And so we want freedom within the structure. And the things that work within lead generation is, one, a lot of people find it helpful not to track contacts, but track the appointment. So instead of saying this week, I've got to do 100 contacts and I win the day, it's I've got to set 2 appointments this week. That's my one thing. So we're getting higher conversion on that. That being said, now that you know what you need to do, whether it's 1 appointment or 2 appointments, you have this one goal. However you get it doesn't matter. So you can instead of, hey, every day you've got to sit down at this time and you got to use this script and you got to call people for 2 hours every day or you can't be successful. That's some of the message that people have. That is not how it works at all. And so giving that freedom, because a lot of us, consistency, we're going to kind of throw out the window a little bit, because once we get bored, we shut down, we don't do it. And when we can kind of shift what we're doing, that's what's helpful. And so bringing it into the left, what we want to do is we want to pair it with something that's somebody's passion, and then also know what the intention is. And for example, one client, I love to share this, never lead gen before she got into coaching. Just she couldn't.
Say that one more time.
She just never did outbound lead generation before she got into coaching. Like she couldn't. It made her hair stand up on the back of her neck. Yeah. And what we found out though is that she loves vintage shopping, and her lead generation now is going to garage sales on the weekend, and she's getting Mets. She's getting like 50 to 100 Mets a weekend, and she gets to vintage shop and she talks to someone about her special interest. So it's fun, and she gets to shop all the time, so she doesn't feel guilty because she's actually doing lead generation.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have someone else. So the point is, like, be creative and do it your way as long as you're hitting the objective. I have someone else who has a huge passion for dogs. And so all of her lead generation is at dog parks. She does events there. They do dog walking for the animal shelter. They do fundraisers. She wrote a children's book, and she does live streams of that. And lead gen, and I have somebody who sends out lottery tickets every month with a card. And then the lead gen is, hey, did you win yet? Are we going on a trip? I'm so excited for you. Lead gen does not have to be this one script that doesn't feel authentic to you and you're just hammering the phone. If your lead generation, if you don't find a way to get into InCup, I would say good luck. That's what I would say. It's going to be so much harder than it has to be.
Right. Well, that's brilliant. We stick to the standards, right? Phone calls, texting, video, voicemail, direct messaging, and door knock, whatever. I love that concept of taking what you do and turning it into lead gen.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we go back to. If you're hitting the objective, it doesn't matter how you get there. So if you need one appointment a week and you go walk around at the mall and you get it instead of doing what you're supposed to do, who cares? It doesn't matter. What matters is you hit goal. And it can, I have one person that hates the phones, And all they do is open houses, and they studied open houses. They got obsessed with it, and that's all they do. And they do it better than anybody else in the region. I have someone else that only sends Facebook messages and text messages because they can't stand the tonality or the fear of rejection, which with ADHD, we can also have what's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So it's
really
fear of rejection on steroids. It's newer with the research. And what it is, they're finding it's actually an emotional pain in the brain that they can measure as being triggered at even the perceived fear of rejection. So you have all these agents that say, hey, I have this fear of rejection. And we dig deeper. And some of them don't. It's really fear of rejection. You handle it that way. But if it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is also common with those on the spectrum as well, you're going to treat it differently. We want to figure out what the trigger is, what triggers it, and we're going to work around it at first, and then we slowly push on it once we got a baseline.
So we're talking, this is pretty deep stuff and very cool. Are these hacks, what you're talking about, these ways to work around it, understanding first that you have it and what the triggers are? Can this all be done without medication? Or is medication almost required through most of it?
That's a really good question. And I know everybody knows I'm not a doctor, and so talk to your doctor if there's anything in what I'm about to say that does or doesn't resonate. Every person's brain is different. For me, if I wasn't on medication, my life would be very hard. My ADHD can be pretty debilitating, especially with my emotion regulation and my rumination, which is something I have, and then my executive dysfunction, which we can touch on in a second. So for me, taking my meds is like putting prescription glasses on in the morning, and my career wouldn't be where it was without it. And it doesn't change who I am. It just lets me, I feel like it helps me be more of me because I can actually take action on the ideas I have instead of like spinning and cycling. Some people, medication is life-changing, and when they go on it, they literally cry and grieve for how hard it was and how thinking like, oh my gosh, is this what it's like for everybody else,
Right.
And then we have some people that can't be on medication because of medical reasons or interacts with another life-saving medicine that they're on, and they find other ways to do it. Exercise. There are a lot of vitamin deficiencies that people with ADHD have that you can take, fish oil, iron, magnesium, zinc. Those are all vitamin D. Those are all things we're typically lower in. I mean, you can look at the research. And so if you're not going to go the medicine route, which it can be really helpful, and I would go to ADHD center or a nurse practitioner, I would not go to the primary care doctor. Not their fault. Most of them, not all, some of them, but most of them don't have the training beyond. So that's where a lot of people try one med, they say it doesn't work, and then they're off of it forever, but they need it. So yeah.
On that, how many? You mentioned you're on medication now. How many different types of medication did you go through to get to where you are now?
Great question. So about 10 years ago, I tried.
Thank you for being so open on this. I mean, this is really personal stuff.
I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I love to share this stuff because what's important is for people to understand that it's not just them and they're not alone. And I don't know. I'm confident. I don't have anything to hide. I think sometimes it can be stigmatized, like medicine or mental health and stuff like that. That's not how my brain works. I want to, like if somebody has a broken leg, you get to put a cast on. And so if somebody's got mental health or depression or anxiety or something that's debilitating, and we don't treat it the same way, and I think we will at some point. So medication wise, 10 years ago, I tried one that I didn't love the way it made me feel, some of the side effects, and I just went off of it. And then again, when I got the ADHD coach 10 years later, he said, let me set you up with an ADHD center. So I went there and I actually got genetic testing. And not everybody knows about this. And they can tell you which medicine's likely to be more effective, less effective, more side effects. And I'm also very sensitive. Like a lot of us have sensory processing stuff. So my shirts are all soft. I don't wear super tight belts. I've been through like 5 pairs of glasses to find ones that my face doesn't want to throw off. And I'm very sensitive to meds. And so I played with like 3 or 4, even with the genetic testing results. And it was with like different generic brand versus name brand and that kind of stuff. And that's common with ADHD because you want to find your perfect medicine. And if it makes you
Sure.
feel a way that you don't like, or you don't, like I said, if it doesn't feel like you're just putting on glasses in the morning, then that might not be the right med for you. Because I think a lot of people are on the wrong meds, or just not quite the right one, and they don't know it. And they either think it's like this, or I'm not on meds at all. And they're not able to access something that would really help them, because they don't
Uh,
know you can dig deeper, and that's why I recommend a center or a specialist.
yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. You mentioned something earlier, um, but that was an effect that you had, and I want you to clarify what it means because I'm not sure. Rumination. You
Oh
mentioned, what
yeah.
is that?
Yeah, rumination, and I also am diagnosed with OCD as well. More of the so, and this is part of the thing with this is being able to work with your brain, right? Because having ADHD and OCD, be like, shoot, that's hard, and it can be, and I don't feel like it's that hard anymore, and I'll share why. So with ADHD, rumination can be something where we think about things over and over again, and so it might be like the same thing and you kind of cycle around it. That can be a common symptom. So if you have to, let's say somebody else, you were working with somebody and then they ended up going with another realtor, and for someone who ruminates about it, you might think about it for days and days and days, to the point where it's just not even helpful anymore.
Right.
And so I think my brain just kind of geared toward that. So I definitely have that as one of my symptoms. And then I have OCD, which is less of the contamination type, more of what's called pure O. And so it's kind of a compulsive thinking. And so you take the rumination, you pour gasoline on it, and that's like how my brain works. So as a
Wow.
kid, what I learned is, I can't stop it. What I can do is I can actually point at it, because my brain has to chew on something all the time. And this is like about working with your brain, whether you have schizophrenia, bipolar, you're on the spectrum, like whatever, you can always find ways to use your brain. And so as a kid, I learned to point at stuff so it had something to chew on that wasn't negative. And for me, that was soccer. I'd sleep with my soccer ball. I'd play tapes of soccer games while I slept. So I thought subconsciously I'd become a better soccer player. Everything I got for my birthday had to have soccer or blue on it. So it was obsessive, right?
Yeah.
And so then what was really cool though, is and I played semi-pro, I played college, I got my school paid for, so it worked. In real estate, I do the same thing with solving problems. And so that's what I chew on all the time, is like, here's this project, here's this course I want to write, here's this issue, or, boom, boom, boom. And so, yeah, I use it for good. And I'm on medication that can help. The ADHD medication helps soften it a little bit. So yeah, that's what rumination is. And however you're wired, go with it. The goal is to not try to be neurotypical or like somebody else. The goal is to be the best you. And if there's parts that are debilitating or pull you back, get stuff in place so that doesn't happen. That's the goal, not to be normal. That's my thoughts.
That's phenomenal. That's I think whether you have ADHD or not, and I'm going to get back to that in a second. A lot of what you're talking about is relevant to everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's you need to focus on what brings you joy, what's going to make you succeed and make you happy, and your whole life, not just your work. Not you have to balance. Not balance is not the right word. You have to focus on what's going to provide you the means to be happy in your personal life and your work life everywhere, which is a huge challenge. You mentioned spectrum. Does everybody have some level of ADHD in them, or is it all or nothing?
This is such a good question, Joe. That's such a good one. For ADHD, it can be a spectrum of how your symptoms show up. You can, I talked to somebody today who I thought, some people need an ADHD coach, and some people need a coach that just has that lens, that maybe doesn't even have ADHD, just understands it. So I think it can show up in a lot of ways on a spectrum, kind of like you said. And also, to answer your question, I would say no. It's estimated only 10% of the population has it. And
Okay.
here's why it gets diagnosed, and here's why, because a lot of people have said that. I think everybody's a little ADHD, and it's and you didn't say that. It's like out there, and I've heard it this week. So I'm not saying you, other people. This is why it's problematic. because the reason that there's 80% of the people in the country who are undiagnosed is because everyone without ADHD experiences symptoms similar to it sometimes, right? Everybody's late sometimes. Everybody feels like they procrastinate. If they're unmotivated, they're bored in a meeting, they're, uncomfortable. Sometimes they have emotional swings, right? That's really normal. People with ADHD experience that almost all the time or all the time. And that's the difference in why it goes undiagnosed. And there's certain things that can appear like one thing, but are actually an ADHD symptom. Here's, if you want, I can give you a big example of that.
Well, let me see if I want to hear that. Let me see if I can sum that up. So a normal person runs the gamut of those emotions and distractions and all that like this and throughout a week. And if you have ADHD, it's my understanding, it's like it's bouncing constantly.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of
because it's you all the time have trouble gauging how long things take, even when you try really hard, or how long it takes to get somewhere, how long it takes to get ready. Brain fog, like working memory issues. You can have emotion regulation, or you feel understimulated and then overstimulated, and you swing between them multiple times throughout the day, every day, where it's all of a sudden it's too much and then you're bored, right? We're looking at how frequent are the symptoms and how kind of severe they are, versus sometimes people are late, sometimes they forget it. And are you late a lot or almost all the time? Are you bored almost all the time? Is it every single training that you can't sit longer than 30 to 60 minutes?
Right.
It doesn't really matter the topic unless it's like a hyper-focused topic that's in it for you.
Right. Okay, so you got to give us a scenario. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. This is the biggest one that I see as a coach that's a game changer that releases so much shame. So often as a coach, I'll get someone who comes to me as a new client and says, well, good luck with me. I'm a master procrastinator. That's what I get all the time. And usually what I say is, I guess that you're probably not. Let's talk about it. True procrastination is when you can do something and you choose not to. You could do it. You could totally do it right now if you want to, and you choose not to. Executive dysfunction, which is the other term that can get confused with procrastination, is you want to do something. You actually really want to do it. You want to get it done. You see the value in it. You know it'd be good for you. And for whatever reason, it's really, really hard to get started, or you just can't even do it. And what that is, executive dysfunction, is some people, actually a good amount, really don't like the term ADHD. It's not a attention deficit, because we have a lot of attention in certain areas, and not everybody's hyperactive. It's an executive function disorder. And they actually some people want to change the name. And what executive function is our brains can have trouble prioritizing, organizing. We see the end. We don't see the steps in between, or we see the 10 steps to get where we want to go, and we see it all at once. And we think, well, if I start at 8, then maybe 2 will be easier. And then I should go to 4. And then, I forgot this. And now I'm distracted by here. And there's all these pieces with executive function. And then our brains aren't lighting up, and there's not dopamine, which is responsible for taking action and motivation and all these things. And as a coach, if it's true procrastination, we're going to layer on the pain to motivate, right? What was the issue of you not doing that thing? What did it cost you? How's that going to affect your family? If we did that with executive function, where it's actually a brain thing, all we're doing is making them feel worse. We're layering on the shame instead of using occupational skills and getting a spreadsheet and dumping everything on the list and helping prioritize externally, because our brains aren't doing it internally, and choosing what's the next action. And we do it all, and we slow down to speed up. That's what people move through on executive function. It is very different. And if you use the wrong one, it can be harmful. Or if it's procrastination, you don't move them forward because it's actually, they need pain.
Well, so I think, tell me if I'm wrong, one of the challenges with this is a lot of people aren't self-aware enough to know that that's actually an issue, and they get stuck there, and they're in that, they just get stuck. And unless they raise their hand and say, hey, I need a coach, if I recognize that in an agent, how do I motivate them to want to actually start working on it?
Yeah. And it's, I guess from a coaching perspective, or whoever, it's and this is a big difference between how I coach someone with ADHD without. My baseline is curiosity over consequences. That is the thing in my head all the time, and that's going to be questions. And if it's yourself or you have someone else and they couldn't do something, asking the questions, what stopped you? Where did you get stuck? Has this happened before? What moved you forward before? And you're figuring out, is this where they actually need help? They actually need to kind of be handheld through this, or just with them, or is it actual procrastination? Because the other way to determine the two is procrastination feels fun. It feels fun to say, I'll do it later. Let me watch Netflix. I don't want to do the laundry. Let's go out to eat. It pay attention to how it feels. Whereas executive dysfunction is, it might look like you're on the couch for 2 hours on your phone, and then you tell people you're exhausted, and they're like, you've been on the couch with your phone for 2 hours. Why are you exhausted? And really, for the last 2 hours, you've been in a shame spiral and trying to motivate yourself and watch a motivational video. It's like, well, let me set a timer for 10 minutes and then I'll get up. Okay, let me do 5 minutes more. Let me do 5 minutes more. And I would say once you get into the questions, the two look very different. One's very shame-based, and it's somebody that is learning-based, a good person, really wants it. They're not lazy and something's not matching up. Whereas the other one is true procrastination. And it's question-based. And you can search executive dysfunction, because a lot of different populations can exhibit those too, like PTSD, mental health stuff, being on the autism spectrum. And you can type that in and say executive dysfunction help, and you'll get boom, 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 all kinds of resources.
Wow. That's great. Wow. That's intense stuff. When we started, I was like, we're going to keep this at 30 minutes. And you said, I can talk for an hour. And
I can go for a couple hours. There's so much. Yeah.
So this is going to hit a nerve with a lot of people, shine a light on a lot of situations. Tell me about your practice. If somebody wanted to, I can't imagine you have any room on your calendar, knowing this business and how agents work. How can somebody get help, as if not yourself, finding another ADHD coach?
Well, I'm at max unless it's a special case. So the challenging part of NCUP, right? I have some clients that are high level, top, like I said, top 1% in the country. And then I have other clients that have been through 3 or 4 coaches, they're on the autism spectrum. They've got PTSD, they've got OCD, they've got ADHD, and they've been through multiple coaches and nothing's worked. And they're this incredible person that lights my brain up all day, every day. Right. I will do anything, because those are incredible people with resilience and diversity and all kinds of things. And so if it's a special case, sometimes I'll take that on. What I would say is you're welcome to reach out to me, because we've got 2 things going on right now. One, I founded KW ADHD, the Cal Williams ADHD community. We have a Facebook group that in less than 2 months, we're almost at 1,000 members. And nice. When you look at the engagement on the stats on the Facebook group, out of the almost 1,000, 900 and I think it was 53 are engaged, meaning they're commenting, they're liking, they're looking at it. It's a really active group of incredible people. I don't even feel like I run it anymore. It runs itself with the people in there. And we have a Tuesday call every single week that's free, Tuesday at 4 p.m., where the group votes on the topic, and we have special guests. I have a specialist of 20 years coming on this Tuesday who's going to talk. And find me on Facebook. Well, find the KW ADHD group. If you're not with KW, I have a brokerage agnostic group that will be grown and more resources as soon as KW ADHD is where I'd like it to be. And I do some stuff in there. And that's ADHD Real Estate Agent Mastermind on Facebook. Find one of those. You can message me. I can help you find a coach. I can do a needs analysis. I'm collecting coaches. I'm helping start a life coaching ADHD division. I am definitely at the center of this and can figure out what you need and point you to whatever that is.
Fantastic. Where can people find you? What's the best way?
You can email me, tylerelstrom@gmail.com. And you can also, like I said, Facebook. Find me on Facebook, Tyler Elstrom. It's got my headshot on there. I don't look that different. I think it's only a year old. Find me either way. And we've got a whole process, because it's really, the goal is, I know what it's like to feel different. I know it's like to feel like you're the only one. And that's what keeps me up at night. And
Yeah.
until everybody has a name for what they're experiencing, again, I got OCD, so watch out, because we're coming for everybody to help them, because I won't rest until that happens. I won't. And so we're going to help everybody we possibly can.
Tyler, this has been amazing.
Thank you.
Definitely one of my favorites interviews. That's so relevant and so informative, and thank you for being so open and
Yeah.
discussing about what you're doing and personally how you handled it and how you're handling it. Great stuff. I look forward to meeting you. I know you're going to be in the area.
Yeah,
coming up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Thanks again, and everybody who's watching this, drop down. You can find his contact information in the comments. And this has been great. Reach out to him. He's obviously very willing to help. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you so much.
And hang on for a second, would you? I don't want you to leave. I want to talk to you. All right. Take care.